I'm kind of getting to the point, Mike, where the Democrats seem to be giving off the impression to me that they don't think that they can win. So why change anything up? Because pretty much anything they need to do, if I said, Mike, give me just three things that they need to do to change, it will be major ideological 180-degree changes. They would literally have to turn their backs on things that they have stood their ground on. So it just seems like they have said, we don't want to look hypocritical. We don't want to submit to an apology. We don't want to correct. We're going to just stand our ground because we have no other option. They really don't have, they would have to become Republicans pretty much.
Well, the problem is they paint themselves in a corner. It's the party of the painted in the corner. And there's no change. Look, I just listened to an interview last night of Kamala Harris with, I think it was Australian television, and she's talking about her book still, and she's talking about potentially running again in 4 years or 3 years or whatever. And I mean, she sounded like it was fucking word salad again. Like she didn't. I mean, it's nice to hear foreign media, because foreign media is a little bit harsher than American media. And the Australian woman was just like, "What you just said didn't even make any sense. Say it again." Because
Oh, I missed that one.
oh yeah, it was great. And
Oh,
and the reality is though, my point to the whole thing is that I say we, the American public, and particularly on the Democrat side, I think are there's some kind of consideration, I think, on their side that they might entertain her running again.
wow. Wow.
I mean, I don't know how to.
Wow.
I mean that if that doesn't prove that they don't get it, I don't know what does. And
Wow.
yeah, so we're already a year. Let's call it a year into Trump, and they haven't come up with any new. So the big argument from the left is that Trump is doing all of the things that we warned you he was going to do. Now, think about that for a second. He's doing all of the things that we warned you about. Why did they warn him about it? Because he said he was going to do them. So what you're basically saying is Trump got in and he's doing all the things that he said he was going to do, which is exactly what's happening. And here's the problem. If you don't like the things that he's doing, you should have brought a candidate that had an opposing platform. The problem is, I would argue that they didn't have a platform at all. That's the problem. So it was either you got to choose between two things. One got candidate standing up there saying, "Here, these are the 30 things I want to do," and then you had the other candidate standing up there and go, "Status quo. Let's just keep doing what we're doing." And everybody's looking around, going, "Well, we're not doing anything. We're fucking not doing anything." Well, why the hell do you think he won then? I mean, I'm so frustrated. Phil, you got me going again. I dropped the F bomb last week more times than
But
I've ever
but
done on one
you're
podcast, and I'm at it again because it's mind boggling to me that you guys can't see that. Like you're just fucking you're a bunch of ostriches.
they they went too hard in the paint, Mike, on major subjects. And after all is said and done, they would have to rebuke their past.
Some of them are. Listen to some of them. Listen to the ones that are critical of Biden. Listen to the ones that are critical of Harris. Listen to the ones that have admitted that, like, look, they made these mistakes. Okay, but now we got to go a step further. One of those people has to put out a platform and go, look, this didn't work. And yeah, some of these things I like, but you know what? They're losers. So let's drop that. Let's not deal with that. Here's the 5 things. And by the way, I think it could be 5 things. It could be because everybody votes for economics. They want to know how much their gas bill and their food bill is going to cost. They want to, look, there's not that many things to talk
But then
about.
I'm going to ask you about. I'm going still. You could do all of the
What are you going to ask me
economics.
about?
Uh,
Whether I
uh,
think fucking men should play on the women's sports team?
exactly. That
Well,
was exactly what I.
fuck you. Fuck that noise. I mean, drop that. Like, seriously, if that's your platform, you're a fucking idiot. A
So I'm saying
fucking idiot.
you be the Democrat
That is
with
a
these new.
terrible. That is. You're going to lose every fucking time.
But what I'm saying
No
is,
one
Mike,
gives a shit.
when you come up with the new ideas, when the moderator asks you, or in a debate, the Republican brings this up, what is your position on it?
If I'm the Democrat,
Yeah, how do you get
I'm going to
around that?
say my prior Democrats were idiots, and they signed up for this program that's a loser because the reality is look, it's stupid. It goes against common sense, and it affects less than 0.1%. Let's move on with another question, Miss Rachel Maddow.
Well, what about uh
How many votes are you going to lose? Not that many. Look, you lost. You lost at the end of the day. Fucking history shows that you lost on that platform. That was a loser.
so I would just hit them with five questions back to back on things like that. And yeah, you would rebuke them, Mike, but then people would the next day in the paper is they be saying that you're not really a Democrat. You would not get no support.
Okay, so let's
It's like a
define for a
lose
second.
lose situation right
Well,
now.
but hold on. Let's define for a second what is the definition of the Democrat of a Democrat. So define the Democratic Party. So here's the problem. I don't think you're going to be able to define that because it doesn't exist anymore. Likewise, I would say the Republican Party does not exist either. It's been hijacked by the MAGA movement and
I
by
agree.
Trump. So they don't really exist. So really what we're talking about is that the MAGA party beat the shell of the Democratic Party that was left. But the problem is that no one, the two of us on this podcast, are not going to be able to define what the Democratic Party is. I don't think, because you've got people all the way from let's say Fetterman in Pennsylvania that seems to like suddenly had common sense, even though he got smacked in the head so hard and whatever. I mean, and now he seems to be making sense. All the way to Zoran Mondami in New York City, which is a self-admitted Democrat, socialist, basically communist. They're not seeing eye to eye. Then you've got like Gavin Newsom, who's a yes man and is trying to tread a Bill Clinton like sort of Obama middle of the ground kind of talk. So which
So,
one of those is the party?
so you basically just described what their other issue is. They can't. I don't know how to say what I want to say, Mike.
Well, they don't have a platform. You can't go to a website. So let me argue.
Okay, I know what.
Let me piss Democrats off. If you go to the Project 2025 website, it lists a very intricate plan of basically what Donald Trump's party is doing right now.
I agree, but
Where do I find that on the other side?
there's two things going on, Mike. Like I 100% agree with you on the side about what is a Democrat. And like if you looked on a website or you spoke to some official in the DNC, I agree. I'm sure that's some issue. But the people who actually believe in the Democrats and vote for the Democrats, they have a very clear thought process of what a Democrat is, even though it's inaccurate. They believe that as a Democrat, they are a wholesome, moral, loving person who is accepting of all people. Uh,
Bullshit.
and we make effort to support the person that's low on the totem pole, whether it's because of their economic status, their sexuality, their lifestyle, whatever. That's the image that Democratic people have.
But
The
that's not a
DNC,
platform.
I understand. I'm getting to that. The DNC's platform and what the DNC represents and the people who are representative of the DNC are antithetical to everything that I just described. All educated, highbrow, scholarly, rich folks telling poor folks that this is the way. So that's what their issue is. A lot of people still think of Democrats as they're the good guys. They're the people who love. There's people who still think in their mind they're not Democrats. I mean that they're not violent. They still think like uh,
So,
Trump and the red is the violent party.
so here's the thing, though: is Phil, both parties, both sides, can effectively treat people well. Okay, like I would argue right now, the problem is that neither of the two parties, which is I'm going to call them the splintered Democratic one and the MAGA movement, neither one is putting people what you described, friendly, nice people. They're not prioritizing that. Neither one of those. And and and
I agree.
and I believe that the quote real Republican Party and the real Democratic Party that has fallen apart used to, and we've lost that. And so, but that's neither here nor there. Like, let's say you want to come up with an evil party, you still got to have a platform.
I agree.
So if you want to defeat the Orange Man, then you got to have somebody that can defeat him, and you have to have if the Orange Man has 20 premises points in his platform, then the other side has to have the same 20 points, and they don't have to be opposite. Some they could share the belief or maybe have different ways of getting to it. But something has to be opposite. You have to be opposite somewhere.
And that's what I'm saying. They already opposite. They would have, in order for them to get people to agree with them, they would have to pretty much agree with the Republicans. And you're saying like find some new subjects, but every time we get in a debate, I'm going to bring up those old subjects. You're not going to be able to escape them. As soon as you start trying to talk about the price of an egg or gas or some war or something, I'm gonna bring it right back to my daughter runs track.
I
And
mean, yeah, I mean, and that's I don't know. That's the frustrating part. So I don't want to hear anybody. I'm done with the
they would
bullshit
literally
excuses.
have to say, we no longer believe or agree or support some very major structural ideologies of the DNC.
Yes,
Like
agreed.
the things that are their foundation, they would have to. That's what
Yep,
I'm trying to say.
I
They would
think you're
have to
right.
erode their
Yep,
foundation to start something else.
yep,
And what they need to do to erode it is basically say we agree with the other party.
yep,
And if you agree with the other party, then I should feel even better about supporting them now. I think they would bleed people.
yep.
Anybody who's not in one of those little categories of theirs, I think they would end up going over to the Republicans.
Well, and that might be also the solution because, like I said, that party's also dead. They don't exist either. So, you know,
They have to if they were to repackage, they have to come up with a whole nother name. They
which
can't be the DNC. They have
and
to
that,
leave and be like
I,
the Tea Party,
I believe that's where we
MAGA or
are.
something.
And I believe that's where we are at this point. I think that is you just hit the nail on the head. That's the solution because the both of the other ones have the prior ones that existed before have been hijacked and they're gone.